my next question. Do you think Killian Hayes and Marcus Sasser get more minutes than Jaden Ivey does? I guess like the rest of the season.
Oh, for the rest of the season? I don't know, man. It's so hard to tell because like when you look at this team, like the shooting guard position, it's so random. And it's hard to kind of wrap your brain around it. But to answer your question, I think they probably will get more minutes unless they trade for a shooting guard at the deadline that makes sense to start next to Cade Cunningham. I think the norm is probably going to be either Sasser or Killian. I feel like Monty's more comfortable with these two guys because they don't make as many mistakes on the defensive end of the floor. And I think that's something he really, preaches. And they're low turnover guards.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about this question a lot today. Like, do they get more minutes than Jaden Ivey? And if you had asked me this at the beginning of the season, I would say you're crazy. Like, how would that ever happen? That's nuts. A rookie and then Killian Hayes getting more minutes over Jaden Ivey? No way. I just think Jaden Ivey is like one mistake away from being the 11th man on the Pistons roster. That's what it feels like sometimes. Like,
yeah,
it's a defensive assignment. Well, Stanley Amude just got your spot. It just seems that way. And I just don't know how you can play for anybody like that. So I'm in agreement with you. I think Marcus Sasser and Killian Hayes do ultimately get more minutes. They become bigger parts of this rotation over Jaden Ivey as the season progresses, unless Jaden Ivey, there's just something that kicks in with him and Monty Williams where Monty's like, I have to play this guy. So with this quote, we get two names. We get Marcus Sasser and we get Killian Hayes. Jaden Ivey's name is nowhere near this quote. Does that concern you at all?
Because it's a repetitive offense.
Yeah.
It does, but I think at the same time, Jaden Ivey has to get better. And I think a lot of people in the chat said it perfectly. Like, if Jaden Ivey wants to get consistent playing time, he has to play both ends of the court. Like, there were probably 3 fouls last game that they just weren't needed. And I know he's trying on defense. He's trying to get better because he didn't come out of the draft like as a lockdown defender. Like, that was actually a knock on him, is like he's not the best defensive player. But I think if he puts games together where he's not, getting these ticky-tack fouls, he's defending, he's switching, he doesn't play like out of control, then yeah. I think that you'll start seeing Jaden Ivey mentioned in these quotes. But yeah, it is concerning. But at the same time, I do want to add context and, be rational about it. Because I think sometimes as fans, like we pick our favorites. Yeah. And like he was a favorite of mine. Like I thought he'd just be, a phenomenal player, but obviously the coaching staff just doesn't see it that way right now. They think he has talent. They think he has potential, but you draft another guard in Sasser who, not saying they have similar skill sets or similar games, but it's another guard at the end of the day, and a guard that's a year older than you that is basically taking your minutes right now. So like, you should feel some type of way about that, and you should try to want to get better each and every day.
Yeah, I don't know. I got to see this real quick. I got to pull something up. I just want to see his minutes against the Cavaliers. But it's a little concerning to me, and it's for all the points I've made during this podcast. It's just Ivy. It's just he's still such a raw player, man, and it's unfortunate. Maybe he could have stayed another year in college, and I don't know if he's still a top 5 pick at that point. I think the Dwayne Wade comparisons that some people were making were a little unfair because they were out there just because he's a 6'4" athletic guard coming out of the Midwest. But he played 13 minutes against the Knicks and then 29 minutes against the Cavaliers. So even though he's not being talked about by Monty Williams, it seems like he's getting somewhat of a fair shot. And that's my next question to you. Do you think Jaden Ivey's getting a fair shot under Monty Williams? Because I think depending on who you ask, they would tell you no. But he's gotten a couple of starts. it seems like the leash is a little bit longer with Jaden Ivey, where there are times where he's playing more free, where he's playing more open. He's not looking over his shoulder, but then he only plays 13 minutes against the Knicks. And they play a handful of guards. And I know he got into foul trouble, but he only had 3 in that game, but it was still only 13 minutes. So, again, my question to you is, do you think he's getting a fair shot under Monty Williams?
I think he is, because I'm looking at the game logs right now. Versus Knicks, he had 12 minutes. Lakers, he had 18. But if you look between Washington all the way down to Atlanta, it goes 32, 32, 29, 28, 29, 20. He's getting a fair shot, I would say, based off of minutes. He had 29 last night. I think Monty's giving him every shot to be a better basketball player. It's just, I think a lot of fans are really hyper focusing on Killian being in the starting lineup and not Jaden Ivey being in the starting lineup. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot of times. Like, I think Ivey has the potential to be a really good player. I know I've told you that multiple times. It's just, offensively, we know he's gifted. It's just the other side of the ball. It's just, that's where he has to work on. Like, if his defense was as good as Killian Hayes, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Like, he would be your starting 2 guard. There have been instances where he does play good defense for a possession or two, but there are other times where he just lets his let the offensive player just blows by him, and Ivey gets caught kind of just like not paying attention. Like, it happens. He's a young player. I don't expect him to be a defensive player of the year 2. But there's promise there. There's potential there. But I don't know, man. It's hard to kind of assess him in year 2.
I agree. I agree with you, too, that I think he's getting a fair shot. I think the whole Monty Williams throwing him in the doghouse, it can be a little too much. It can be exaggerated by some fans. It does seem that way sometimes. And I think I've said it a few times, probably even on this podcast. But overall, I do think he's been given a fair shot by Monty Williams. But I also think Monty's being put in a really tough spot with a roster that is maybe like 6 players are actually NBA guys and the rest are just, I don't know, maybe rotation pieces or just regular season players on good teams. I don't know. It's a tough situation all around.